Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. I'll be conducting our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at KSC. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. Appreciate you checking in with us as SpaceX prepares for its 13th Falcon 9 rocket launch of the year. Notably, its first expendable Falcon 9 of the year as well. As you can possibly see, and we'll push in throughout the broadcast to give you better glimpses a little bit closer up. But this Falcon 9 has neither grid fins nor landing legs, as SpaceX does not intend to recover this particular first stage booster today. Company needing more of the performance from the Falcon 9 rocket to get this satellite where it's going tonight. And so the customer opting for an expendable version of the Falcon 9 rocket to support this. The booster at the base of this Falcon 9 stack, B-1073, will be making its 21st and final flight tonight. As we're getting things going here, I want to welcome in the nearly 2,000 of you who are joining with us live at the start of the broadcast. Appreciate you being with us. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we roll on through the count. Currently T-minus 57 minutes, 8 seconds and counting to the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. I also want to thank our moderator in the chat, Calistia Lee. And we'll scan to see if any of the other mods are popping in tonight, but we'll be keeping an eye out for them. If you do see them cruise on in, be sure to give them a big hello. These live launch broadcasts are powered by our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like Jeff Hansen, Ryan Snyder, Cumulus Granatus, Russell Jones, Christy Brown, and many others. The Rocket Girl, hello to you. Nancy Barrios, hello, hello. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here at the Cape in 4K. Taking that closer look up at the Falcon 9 rocket mentioned earlier, you see the distinct lack of grid fins. It's a rare thing to see a Falcon 9 in an intentionally expendable configuration. But every now and again there is a customer that requires more oomph from the Falcon 9 than the reusable version can provide. Of course, the last time we saw this type of Falcon 9 wasn't too terribly long ago, and it was in fact for another Europe-based mission. That was the launch of the Hera spacecraft heading out to the Didymos binary asteroid system, the follow-on mission to NASA's DART, the double asteroid redirection test from a couple of years ago. Hera lifting off back in October of last year. So, again, not too far in the past. As Stephen is reminding me, that was also followed by the expendable Falcon Heavy on behalf of NASA and the Europa Clipper mission, where both of the side boosters and the center core were all expended on that particular flight. Last little bit of housekeeping here. If you have a comment or question about this mission, other happenings in the realm of spaceflight, or just want to show a little support this evening, you can go ahead and follow the lead of Mel D. Dillard and use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will he be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that is always greatly appreciated. That helps support efforts like not only improving our hardware, but allowing us to do some good on-the-ground reporting outside of KSC and the Cape. Not too far of a jaunt this week, but we have been spending the last couple of days, and we'll be back again tomorrow for the SpaceCom conference and expo that is happening over in the city beautiful, Orlando. Tuesday was the Space Mobility Conference and Expo, and today was the first day of the 51st Space Congress. SpaceCom is a combination of a few different events that are rolled on into 1 week and put under the SpaceCom umbrella. Lots of good panels today, lots of great learning and conversations. So be sure to keep your eyes tuned to the website, spaceflightnow.com, and to our channel right here. If you're not already subscribed, now's a great time to do so, as we'll be having some of that content from the conference start to roll on out to the channel here in the days and weeks to come. For now, we're T-minus 53 minutes and counting to the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Want to acknowledge the rest of our team before we continue on here with the broadcast. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's running the technical operations of this stream. Our photographers as well, Adam Bernstein, getting ready to do some tracking of this Falcon 9 once it does take flight. Also, some still photography as well. Our other photographer, Michael Kane, does have this evening off, but if you're not already following the fellas on their social channels, you can find them principally on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC. Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. That's Kane with a C if you're not looking at your screen right now. While you're there, you can follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. We are also on Blue Sky as well as Threads and Facebook for those who are not on X. Time now, T-minus 51 minutes, 51 seconds, and counting. Let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline here. Let's talk about the countdown timeline, the nominal milestones for fueling that we're looking forward to as SpaceX continues on progressing towards the liftoff of its Falcon 9 rocket from Historic Launch Complex 39A tonight. As per usual, things will get going with the go for propellant load. SpaceX does its pull electronically, so if it feels like it's in a good position to do so, it can take this pull a little bit early, but generally speaking, it happens at T-minus 38 minutes. Once that go-ahead is given, prop load starts at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, or a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. 30 minutes out from launch, the cryogenic helium load begins on the Falcon 9's first stage as well. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. The same will happen on the second stage a few minutes after that. T-minus 23 minutes, second stage RP-1 load wraps up. Then T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, the strong back chill down process begins. It's when SpaceX is conditioning the feed lines prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. Here at pad 39A, we see that visually manifest as the so-called big vent. That happens on this pad right about T-minus 20 minutes and 30 seconds. About 10 seconds earlier than pad 40 over on the Cape side. That venting will continue on until about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds, when we'll see it taper off, setting the stage for a second stage LOX load to begin at T-minus 16 minutes. T-minus 7 minutes, the engine chill-down sequence gets underway. That's when SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, the strong back retract sequence gets underway. See the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, pulls back a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute after that, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before the moment. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, and there's no other criteria that would prevent a launch, we'll see a good liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket coming up here at T0. SpaceX currently targeting the opening of a 2-hour window tonight. That is 8:34 p.m. Eastern, 01:34 UTC for our friends around the world. We're T-minus 47 minutes and 16 seconds. Time now, T-minus 45 minutes, 42 seconds and counting. Here, just about 7.5 minutes away from the point at which the SpaceX launch director is expected to make the call on the start of prop load tonight. Before that happens, let's go ahead and acquaint you with where this Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? What you're hearing just there was a loudspeaker announcement coming from the vehicle assembly building. Couldn't quite catch what they were saying, but it sounded like they were trying to get in touch with someone unrelated to tonight's flight. So, back to trajectory. Falcon 9 rocket will be lifting off from Launch Complex 39A, coming up here in a little less than 45 minutes from now, as expected. It will fly in an easterly direction as it lifts off from the pad and begin its journey to send the payload into a geosynchronous transfer orbit. As you can see, though, there is no second arc for following the path of the booster, since once again this will be SpaceX flying in an expendable configuration, so the first stage booster will not be recovered on this flight. However, the payload fairings will likely be recovered. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort. They splash down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under this port of steerable parachutes. They'll be brought aboard a recovery vessel like the one you see here on your screen from a previous recovery effort back now about a year and a half. T-minus 43 minutes, 29 seconds and counting. Very calm conditions that are out here on Florida's Space Coast tonight. Coming into this launch opportunity, the 45th Weather Squadron forecasts just a 5% chance of violating weather conditions, or put in a more positive spin, 95% chance of good weather at liftoff. As you can see, with the reflection of the Falcon 9 in the waters between the rocket and us here at the press site, you can see the water is extremely calm this evening. Bit of a breeze enough to make the American flag blow just next to the countdown clock. Only item of note as far as liftoff conditions that the good folks at the 45th Weather Squadron are tracking was a potential violation of the thick cloud layers rule, and also keeping an eye on the upper level wind shear, which is tracking between low and moderate on a scale of low to moderate to high. If for whatever reason SpaceX is not able to launch today, whether because of a technical issue or if that 5% does prove to be just the wrong timing, they do have a 24-hour backup opportunity for this mission. Weather for that looks even better than it does tonight, with a greater than 95% chance of favorable conditions at liftoff, with no primary violating weather constraints tomorrow, and the upper level wind shear drops to a low risk. All things considered, though, things are tracking well, it appears, towards a liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket tonight, so we will provide any updates should that change. Time now, T-minus 39 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. As we are waiting word on the start of fueling with this Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the payload on board. SpaceX is preparing to launch a satellite called SpainSat NG-1, or New Generation 1. This is the first of two planned satellites in the SpainSat NG program, which is managed by Hispasat, a secure communications satellite company, described as the premier secure communications satellite company based in Spain, with this satellite designed to help provide secure communications, as the company's role would suggest, to both Spain as well as its allies in Europe and elsewhere around the world, including the United States. So to learn a little bit more about this satellite, let's go ahead and bring you to a video from Airbus Defence and Space, the satellite's manufacturers. Learn more about the satellite, the partnership between Airbus, Hispasat, and the European Space Agency that helped make today's mission possible.
The SpainSat NG program will provide a sovereign, secure communications capability for government missions, with 2 new generation satellites based on Airbus's Eurostar Neo platform, which is developed under the European Space Agency's partnership projects. The SpainSat NG program is under the responsibility of Hispasat.
Hispasat is an international service provider of X and military Ka-1 for government and military applications. Our role in the program SpainSat NG is to be the customer of the full program, including the space and ground segment, the launch, and the operation and exploitation of the satellite during 15 years lifetime.
What's unique about the SpainSat NG program is the PASIS 3 funding partnership model.
PASIS 3 is a financial scheme to develop the most innovative elements of the SpainSat NG payload with the support of the Center for Technological and Industrial Development, CDTI, in a framework of a private-public partnership between the European Space Agency and Hispasat as an operator of the satellite.
The most innovative element of the payload is the X-band active antenna system, comprising both receive and transmit antennas.
Something as complex as the DRA's antenna in X-band, an active antenna that can move the pins electronically and can configure the pin electronically without any movement, is what makes this satellite the most advanced one in Europe today.
These active antennas are at the cutting edge of new technology, with beam hopping and geolocation capabilities enabling artificial intelligence, big data, and the Internet of Things on the ground. The antennas are being developed by Airbus, which is leading a consortium of 5 Spanish space companies.
The active antennas are already in production. Actually, they are in the assembly, integration, and test phase. That is the last phase before delivery of the antenna. It's done in Barajas site in Airbus Defence and Space in Spain, and it will be delivered to Toulouse.
For SpainSat NG-1, the mating between the communication module and the service module has taken place in Airbus facilities in Toulouse. This was the first step of the final satellite AIT phase.
The SpainSat NG program has been a very good example of institutional and industrial collaboration. In the industrial part, it has been a very good collaboration between the 2 main industries in Europe, being Airbus and Thales Aerospace, including all the Spanish industries in this important program.
Airbus works to safeguard Europe's citizens and strategic autonomy. Through SpainSat NG, it will provide secure, resilient, and flexible communications for those who keep us safe.
And again, that video provided by Airbus Defence and Space. We're now at T-minus 34 minutes, 31 seconds and counting. At this point, assuming that all is going well with the Falcon 9 rocket, SpaceX should be in propellant mode loading right now. Once again, they do start with loading RP-1, or a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages, and liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Now T-minus 32 minutes, 43 seconds and counting. Taking a punched-in look at the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. If you look up near where the strong back starts to taper in, and then bring your eyes just to the left of that, where the Falcon 9 first stage booster is, you can see just a little ball of vapor starting to form there as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the first stage. And we do have a statement from SpaceX as well in the last few seconds saying, quote, "All systems and weather are looking good and propellant load is underway for tonight's launch of the SpainSat NG-1 mission from Pad 39A in Florida," end quote. So with that confirmation and our eyes not deceiving us, SpaceX is targeting the opening of the window, as all indications seem to point to. And the start of fueling means that SpaceX is locked into this time. Because they use that super cold densified liquid oxygen, they use a so-called load and go style of fueling, which essentially means that they are tanking the Falcon 9 pretty close to the point right before which they need to launch. And so if an issue does arise at this point, it would result in a scrub, since SpaceX does not have the ability to hold the countdown with its Falcon 9 rocket. As we continue on through the count, now T-minus 29 minutes, 21 seconds and counting. Remiss for not mentioning, but before we get any further, I want to thank our friends P. Carsons with Max Q Productions, as well as our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs for joining us with support in tracking this Falcon 9 rocket when it gets ready to leave the launch pad here in 29 minutes. I also want to thank the 5,000 of you who are watching with us live here on YouTube. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we continue on through the count. Also, we'll note for timing, this is T-minus 28 minutes, 38 seconds and counting now. About a minute or so ago, SpaceX began loading a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels on the first stage as well. Taking a look at our live chat, realize we've got a number of folks to thank as we continue on through the countdown here tonight. Our thanks to channel member Trinity, aka Mama T, for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Trinity. We'll start with the gifting because there's been quite a bit of that over the last several minutes. Big thanks to Artemis for gifting 50 Spaceflight Now memberships. Appreciate you, Artemis, for being so generous. Artemis then later on gifts 20 and then another 20, so 90 in total. My goodness, really appreciate that. One of our moderators, Clistia Lee, gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships as well. So to our 105 new channel members, well, that's a treat to be able to say. To our 105 new channel members, welcome aboard to all of you. We're very glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Trinity, Artemis, and Clistia in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership here. And welcome aboard. I want to thank Stephen Strickland, one of our channel members, for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Stephen, who says, go Spaceflight Now, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9. Channel member Beverly Knuckles has been with us for 7 months as a channel member at the pad leader level, who says, I love gift with purchase. I also love supporting space travel. It's like planting a tree for future generations. That's a wonderful way to think about it. Last one for now. Back to another thank you to Artemis for a very generous $100 super chat. Really appreciate that, Artemis. And I see the message, but as we mentioned before in a previous stream, we don't do accents here on the channel, but really appreciate your support with the coverage tonight. Now T-minus 24 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. As we mentioned, the Falcon 9 rocket supporting this mission, B-1073, will be making its 21st and final flight this evening. So before we wish it a fond farewell, let's go ahead and take a step back, talk about the flights that it has completed up to this point before it goes off on its big 21. It first began sending up a group of 53 Starlink version 1.1 satellites on the Starlink 4-15 mission back on May 14th of 2022. Next flew in support of one of SpaceX's longest-standing customers, SES, the SES-22 satellite on June 29th of 2022. A couple of Starlink satellites again. It's Starlink 4-26 on August 10th, 4-35 on September 24th. The first lunar lander from iSpace, the Hakuto R Mission 1 lander, lifted off on December 11th of 2022. The first one failed to land, but hopefully things go better with the second, which is currently in its 4 to 5 month path to the moon as we speak. Next up for this booster was as it so happens, another satellite on behalf of Hispasat. This one was the Amazonas Nexus satellite lifting off on February 7th of 2023. That was followed up by a trip to the International Space Station, the launch of the Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-27 flight with that Cargo Dragon spacecraft. Back to Starlink land we go for a little bit. We had Starlink 6-2 on April 19th, 5-11 on June 12th, 6-12 on September 4th, 6-27 on November 8th, 6-37 on January 15th of last year, 6-41 on March 4th, and then we have a rideshare mission, Bandwagon 1, lifting off on April 7th of last year. 11 satellites on board that mid-inclination flight. Back to Starlink land we go, 6-58 on May 13th, 8-9 on July 3rd, 10-7 on August 12th, 6-61 on October 23rd. The penultimate previous flight was the GSAT N2 mission on behalf of the Indian Space Research Organization. That was a communications satellite. And most recently, launching the Thuraya 4 NGS mission for the United Arab Emirates. And that brings us to tonight. We're in T-minus 21 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. We'll see liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. On our way there, though, we've got the big vent coming up here within the next minute. It's a good visual indication showing that fueling is moving along as expected. And SpaceX conditioning the feed lines prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. That process now underway. We should start to see really the big vent kick off in about 10-ish seconds. And there you see the start of the vent. Now T-minus 20 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. Now T-minus 17 minutes, 11 seconds and counting as we see the conclusion of the so-called big vent coming up here in about 30 seconds. I want to thank a few more folks in the live chat for your support tonight. Thanks to channel member Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Appreciate you, Chuck. Good to see you this evening. I'm Lita, another one of our wonderful channel members, the $5 super chat, who says, awesome to be here with you all again. Best place to share love of launches. Agreed, and appreciate the kind words. Another wonderful member of our community, Joni Mahoney, with a $10 super chat, who says, love Spaceflight now. Will and all the channel members, best place to see rockets launch. As you see the conclusion of the big vent there on the heart of your screen. Appreciate the words. And agree it is a wonderful place to share these launch experiences with you all. No other place that I'd rather be. And hopefully those of you who are in the area of Florida or a little bit further to the north have a good chance to see this Falcon 9 as it takes flight with your own eyes, coming up here in less than 16 minutes. I also want to thank Eller Flats for a $3 super chat. Thank you so much. Time now T-minus 12 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. Now T-minus 11 minutes, 13 seconds and counting. Getting our pad level views from SpaceX here. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. You'll note there's a slight difference between the countdown clock in the upper right-hand corner of the screen and what you're seeing in the big box. Reason for that is our clock is in real time. What you're seeing from SpaceX is coming in on a slight delay. So as long as we have onboard camera, or as long as we have on the ground tracking level views of the Falcon 9 rocket, we'll be making those callouts in real time. With the SpaceX graphics, let's go ahead and talk about the Falcon 9 rocket. The payload fairings, starting at the top, are 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. SpaceX is planning to recover the payload fairings following deployment. Second stage of the Falcon 9, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine, producing more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired twice on today's flight, placing the SpainSat NG-1 satellite on its way to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. Moving on down the rocket, beneath the second stage, just a quick note, actually, about the payload fairings. SpaceX commentator John Innsbrucker noting that one of the fairing halves is flying for its 8th time and the other for a 5th time. Just beneath the second stage, that inner stage, a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. Because this is an expendable Falcon 9, there are no hypersonic grid fins on this rocket. But at the top of the inner stage are those 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. The first stage main engine cutoff, high pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure clean separation. Falcon 9 in total is 70 meters or 229 feet tall, has diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. For those who are joining us now, this particular booster is flying for its 21st and final time today, powered by 9 Merlin engines and a combination of liquid oxygen and a rocket-grade kerosene, or RP-1. Produces 1.7 million pounds of thrust. And again, because this is an expendable Falcon 9 rocket, it also does not have any landing legs. Now 8 minutes and counting. Now T-minus 7 minutes and counting. At this point, SpaceX is thermally conditioning the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the rocket by flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. As we're cruising through the final several minutes of the count, I want to thank a few more folks before we get right into the heart of things. Our thanks to Rick St. Hilaire for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Rick, who says thanks for all the coverage. Idle Ratchet with a $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Idle. Says, love watching these launches. Old Sea Dog, the 10-pound super chat. No comment, just a little bit of support there. Thank you, Sea Dog. Jason Seeking with a $25 super chat. Really appreciate the generosity, Jason. Thanks for supporting at that level, as we're now just a hair under 6 minutes to go. At this point, first stage RP1 load should be complete. Channel member Ryan Snyder with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Ryan, who says, love Spaceflight now. Thanks for all you do. Lucia with a $2 super chat. Checking in. Appreciate you for that, one of our channel members. Thanks to Artemis for gifting yet another 20 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that generosity, Artemis, and for continuing to grow our channel member community here on YouTube. To those newest 20 channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Artemis in the live chat. I hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop. That's spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here on the Cape in 4K. Now less than 5 minutes to go. About 20 seconds away from the clamp arms opening up and the strong back retract sequence getting underway. Thanks to Wolverine Warlord for a $10 super chat, sending respect and memories for those who left from 39B and were lost aboard Challenger 39 years ago yesterday. As this is a somber week in human spaceflight, as we honor the memories of those lost in the Apollo 1 fire and the Challenger and Columbia disasters. Now with less than 4 minutes to go, you can see the clamp arm just beneath the payload fairings opening up. Soon the transporter erector will pull back a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Here you can see the strong back pulling back. You can see the same thing in the live picture there, just to the right-hand side in real time. We're now less than 3 minutes to the planned liftoff. First stage LOX load is wrapped up now at this point. It's listening for a call.
Now the white clouds...
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Good call on Stage 1 LOX load. Less than 30 seconds away from when Stage 2 LOX load should wrap up. Less than 2 minutes away from liftoff. With second stage LOX load complete, you're seeing the ground gas closeouts here. And final venting clears the lines of any remaining liquid oxygen. As we're coming up on the final minute prior to liftoff, we're going to go ahead and keep our focus on the Falcon 9 rocket. Come back to the live chat on the other side of liftoff. Falcon 9 is in startup. We're awaiting a call for go for launch. And we did hear that go for launch call. We are less than 30 seconds away from liftoff of SpainSat NG-1. "15 seconds. And here we go. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket and SpainSat NG-1. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now a little more than a minute into flight. Falcon 9 throttling down as it approaches max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Some great views from our tracking team tonight. Pass through max Q. Soon SpaceX will be thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage ahead of its ignition. Starting in about a minute, we'll see a few different events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That'll be followed seconds later by stage separation. And then the second stage engine will ignite just before the 3-minute mark. A little more than 3.5 minutes into flight, we'll see the payload fairings separate. Now more than 2 minutes into the mission. Coming up on MECO. Here you see MECO. Stage separation. And second stage engine start.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
All good call-outs from SpaceX, seeing those onboard camera views from the Falcon 9 rocket. As a reminder, this is an expendable Falcon 9 rocket, so there will be no booster landing. and a good view of the SpainSat NG-1 satellite as the payload fairings separate. A little more than 4 minutes into flight. SpaceX commentator John Insprucker noting that the fairing halves will be recovered by the recovery vessel known as Bob, one of a couple of recovery vessels SpaceX has here on the East Coast, named after former NASA astronaut Bob Behnken, one half of the duo that flew the Demo 2 mission back in May of 2020. Coming up on 5 minutes into flight. The next milestone that we're tracking is the cutoff of the Merlin vacuum engine at T plus 8 minutes. Now coming up on 6 minutes in flight in real time. So you can see the second stage is continuing to accelerate, approaching 16,000 kilometers per hour speed, an altitude of about 164 kilometers. Less than 2 minutes to SECO 1. Now a little more than 7 minutes into flight. We're coming up on one last minute before SECO 1. Less than a minute now. About 45 seconds. Now 8+ minutes into flight. Seeing SECO 1 in real time. We're watching for it here on the SpaceX feed. Good call, shut down on the engine.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And a good call for a nominal orbit insertion. At this point, and with a good view of the SpainSat NG-1 satellite there, The upper stage will continue to coast until T plus 26 minutes, 37 seconds. It'll be a little more than a minute-long burn on the second stage at that point, and that'll set up the SpainSat NG-1 satellite to be deployed at T plus 31 minutes and 24 seconds. As we're now approaching 10 minutes into this flight, while we're in this coast phase, let's pop back over to the live chat. I want to thank a few more folks for your support this evening. Our thanks to channel member Butterfly for being a channel member with us now for 13 months. Appreciate that. It says, Will and friends, you have to keep meeting like this. Yeah, that's sort of the name of the game here at Spaceflight now. Jacques Q with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Jacques. And thanks to John Wolf for a $2 super chat as well. Referencing the previous comment, I believe, is Unplugged Lamp with a $5 super chat saying, as they pass from us to glory, riding fire in the sky. EA Sports 2K9 with a £20 super chat. Appreciate that, EA. Thanks for the generosity. Rolly Nevels has been a channel member with us at the mission specialist level. He says, Godspeed, everyone. Thank you, Rolly. Mrs. Ed3 has been with us for 8 months now. Again, referencing those who passed in the Apollo 1 fire, as well as the Challenger and Columbia disasters, saying rest in peace to all that died. Checking back in now on the Falcon 9 flight. Cruise of the upper stage. You can see where the first stage was on track to splash down into the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. They're much closer by comparison to Florida. Second stage cruising over the Atlantic Ocean right now, making its way towards the western tip of Africa. Presumably live views from the Falcon 9 upper stage will resume once that part of the rocket gets closer to a landmass. Popping back to the live chat, I want to thank Amy for a $10 super chat, saying from Jedi James. Appreciate that, James. Thanks to Catherine Ray as well for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Catherine. P. Caldwell with a $10 super chat. No words, just some support. Appreciate that, Mr. Caldwell. And Jacques Hugh back with another $2 super chat saying, very much appreciate you. as SpaceX continues on with this mission here, now T plus nearly 14 minutes into flight. Do believe they are also planning for their next launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base coming up tomorrow evening. That would be the Starlink 11-4 flight from Space Launch Complex 4 East out there in California. Time now T plus 16 minutes, 52 seconds in real time. Want to thank one of our moderators, Aussie Space Girl, for joining us this evening as well. Appreciate you helping out with Callistia. Now a little more than 18 and a half minutes into flight. Popping back into the live chat, want to thank Kevin Morgan for being a channel member with us for now 3 months and counting. Who says, coming in late, why couldn't they recover the first stage? Reason being is because SpaceX needed to access some additional performance capability from the Falcon 9 first stage booster in order to get this satellite on its way to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. And so they are flew the Falcon 9 first stage booster tail number B1073 in an expendable configuration. Time now T plus 24 minutes, 37 seconds and counting in real time. Slight difference coming from the SpaceX feed, but not too far behind. SpaceX is now conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine prior to its second ignition, which is coming up here in the next couple of minutes. Getting views of the upper stage now that the Falcon 9 second stage passing within range of the Hispasat ground station. Second ignition of the upper stage engine expected to begin about T plus 26 minutes and 37 seconds into flight. That burn lasting about a little more than a minute in duration. Now less than 30 seconds away from the planned second ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Ignition of the MVAC-D engine. Now this burn's going to last about 67 seconds. That's typical for a geostationary mission. If you're watching the speed gauge on the right-hand side of the display, you're going to see that we're going to add about 2,500 meters per second to the velocity of the second stage, which is still carrying the SpainSat NG-1 payload on top. Now during this burn, as we continue burning off the remainder of the propellant, the acceleration will reach 4.8 G at the end of the burn. This is about 1 G more acceleration than we had on the first burn of the second stage when we had a lot more propellant on board. Engine now throttling down, decreasing the loads on the spacecraft as we're coming up, and we have SECO 2.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there's the big call out for the day, nominal orbit insertion. Second stage in its second burn has put the spacecraft onto the desired trajectory. You can see right now 400 kilometers, 440 kilometers in altitude. We're headed to an orbit much higher than that. Next up, we're going to have separation of the second stage, of the SpainSat NG-1 spacecraft. We've got a couple of minutes before that happens. We'll come back with live commentary at about T plus 30 minutes.
And where John left off, I'll go ahead and pick it up from there. As you heard and saw, a good burn of the second stage for a second time. Deployment of the SpainSat NG-1 satellite coming up here at about T plus 31 minutes, 24 seconds. Got a good view of that on the stage adapter. So far, it has been a quite nominal mission for SpaceX on their 13th Falcon 9 launch of the year so far. Saw a question in the live chat asking about whether or not we'll be able to see deployment, and the answer to that is yes, barring some last-minute hiccup with the camera that's been showing us views of the payload on board the Falcon 9's upper stage. There shouldn't be a reason why we won't see deployment of that satellite. You see they're live on your screen right now. Now T plus 30 minutes, 50 seconds and counting from the SpaceX feed. A little more than 31 minutes in real time. As far as the visuals are concerned, we're about 20-ish seconds away from seeing the deployment of SpainSat NG-1. As we approach the final seconds prior to deployment, let's go ahead and listen in.
And we're waiting for payload deploy.
SpainSat NG-1 deploy confirmed.
Avionics engineer calling out successful deploy. You can see it on the screen. Springs pushing the second stage and the SpainSat NG-1 spacecraft away from each other. And with that successful deploy of SpainSat NG-1 satellite, it begins its journey to its final destination. With that, that's going to wrap up our coverage for today.
And with a good deployment of the SpainSat NG-1 satellite, let's go ahead and turn to our mission stats as they currently stand. As we begin to close things out on our broadcast tonight. As mentioned, this was an expendable Falcon 9 rocket, meaning this was the 21st and final launch of Falcon 9 booster tail number 1073. It marked the 430th Falcon 9 launch to date. This was the 13th Falcon 9 flight of 2025, the 374th Falcon booster reflight, the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. With the loss now of B-1073, SpaceX still has 17 boosters that have flown at least one mission, so quite a bit in its roster to fly from both the east and the west coasts. With no Falcon Heavies yet on the year, this was also SpaceX's 13th orbital launch of the year so far, the 137th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This marked the 102nd SpaceX orbital launch from Pad 39A, and the 196th overall orbital launch from this pad. Once again, because this was an expended Falcon 9 rocket, we are going to go ahead and skip over the recovery stats page, but here's a look at the bar graph of where they are with their Falcon family of rockets. We'll move on instead to industry stats. This was the 10th orbital launch from Florida this year so far, the 14th orbital launch from U.S. soil, 14th from a U.S. rocket company. We are just a handful of days away now from seeing Rocket Lab add to that tally from its first launch down in New Zealand coming up. First launch of the year, I should say. This is also the 21st orbital launch from around the world. So far, all have been successful, and we've got a new entrant on the pie chart here. Actually, India with its first launch, China with 6, the United States with 14 so far, as we get ready to close out the month of January. And that'll go ahead and do it for us here at Spaceflight Now. Really appreciate all of you for being with us tonight. Want to thank our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images, as well as Pete Carsons with MaxQ Productions for helping to provide tracking views of the Falcon 9 as it made its ascent. Thanks to our photography team of Adam and Michael. You can find them at their social channel handles on X, for instance, at ABurnNYC for Adam, MD Kane Jr. for Michael, and just at Spaceflight Now for us at Spaceflight Now. Want to thank our moderators in the live chat, to Callistia Lee and Aussie Space Girl. Appreciate the both of you, as well as all of our other moderators as they're able to weave in and out, both on live launch nights as well as over on our 24-hour live stream, Launchpad Live. Big thanks to our channel member community. And as a reminder, I'll be back again at SpaceCom for the second and final day of the 51st Annual Space Congress. So hope to see some of you over there. If you happen to be Orlando, spot me out and about in the crowd. Love to say hi to some of y'all in the real world. Big thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you are watching from. Certainly appreciate you being with us, and I'll give the last tip of the hat to Rusty Buckets, joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.